has just arrived here a few days ago from the capital city of Srinagar, Kashmir. Mr. Tikku served 8 years in the Indian Army, including the 1965 war with Pakistan. He retired from the Army as captain after being injured on active duty, and he returned to Kashmir where his views on Kashmir society and culture brought him to the forefront of Kashmiri politics. In the international arena, he has addressed the United Nations on human rights and represented Kashmir at the Hague Appeal for Peace. Currently, he is General Secretary of the JNK, that is the Jammu and Kashmir Awami Conference, and in this capacity, he has been the only Kashmiri Hindu capable of bringing together former militants under a secular pro-India banner. For taking this approach, Captain Tikku has been targeted by Islamic Jihad groups with one assassination attempt. His views and approach on this issue are gaining hold in both Kashmir as well as the central Indian leadership, and so I would like to welcome Captain Tikku for sharing his experience. Thank you. I'd also like to remind everyone to write those questions down, and I ask those people that will be collecting those questions to begin collecting them in 10 minutes from now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravi. I have a paper which I had written on for this seminar, but that's not all that I have to say. I'll be talking something more, the ground reality that exists in Kashmir today. Not many people know about that. But first the paper, please. For a decade and more, Kashmir has been bleeding. Diverse measures initiated by various quarters from time to time have not been able to stanch this flow of blood. There may have been periods of seeming remission, yet deliverance is nowhere in sight. What has happened? Why are these tragic latitudes condemned thus? Nowhere has death been as meaningless. Some sorry visitation has left a once happy people dumb and defenseless. To understand the mechanics of this visitation, one needs to go a little back in time. The Indian subcontinent is the only unfortunate region in the world that underwent a formal partition along supposedly religious lines. The award was handed down by the imperial power that was leading the region through its designated commissioner, one Sir Cyril Radcliffe. This gave rise to two successor states, only one of which was declared to be a religious state, the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. The rump state of India was a multi-religious, multi-ethnic and multicultural democracy that had an Islamic population far in excess of that of Pakistan. The princely state of Jammu and Kashmir, which existed on the Indian side of Radcliffe's line, was much like the Indian Dominion in terms of its ethnic mix. The state formally acceded to the Indian Dominion after Pakistan had intruded upon its territory and annexed a third of its land. The seeds of the present nightmare lie in the complex part of India's history, an important facet of which was India's reference to the United Nations and the evolution of the concept of a plebiscite in the entire state after Pakistan invaded its occupation. Pakistan never did it. It also allowed populations to mix freely across the line. The plebiscite was never held, and the United Nations has lately termed the resolution mentioning this as irrelevant. The basic question that we must attempt to answer is this: is this so-called insurgency in Kashmir an expression of its subnational aspirations or ethnicity? If so, what is the locus standi of Pakistan apart from being a sympathetic neighbor? Or is this insurgency a religious movement directed towards realization of the unfinished agenda of India's partition? In that case, why should the burden of jihad be borne by Kashmiris? Even a cursory analysis of the events of the past decade will give us the answer. The answer begs a further question. Can religion be the sole ideological underpinning of a modern independent nation state? Quite clearly, the answer has to be in the negative. Furthermore, the ruse of Pakistan in calling its war in Kashmir as insurgency has been exposed following its fear in asking all the people seeking electoral office in Pak-held Kashmir to make the written declaration that Kashmir is a part of Pakistan. Civilizationally, Kashmir was never outside India. Culturally, Kashmir was the essential India. Geopolitically, Kashmir has always been India. Economically, Kashmir cannot be imagined without India. Then what is Pakistan's case? It is not without significance that a geocultural region that has historically been the foundry in which an Indian consciousness was forged is today in turmoil. This Indian consciousness is characterized by an all-inclusive and Catholic vision where many important religions of the world flower in their most ennobling form. Tolerance, peaceful coexistence, respect for other faiths and beliefs, piety and truth mark the vision which is at the core of all religions. For entities that exist on other assumptions, whether these entities are countries or parties or movements or trends, this vision represents a threat to their very existence. Pakistan has and always will want to undermine this vision, this idea that is India. For Pakistan is the classic entity of this kind. It has come about without any political ideology. Its genesis being based purely on the notion of religious exclusivity and an anachronism in the modern world. Kashmir has been the crucible in which Pakistan has repeatedly tried to work out its existential dilemma. Curiously, the people of Kashmir Valley are also faced with an existential crisis of their own. Kashmir, which was the last bastion of a progressive, humane and tolerant reading of Islam, the religion of peace, was systematically pulled down into the purgatory of fundamentalism, while its people looked on as gullible and later terrified spectators. Religious bigotry was the hallmark of what apologists term as the struggle of the Kashmiri people. This culminated in the ethnic cleansing of nearly 500,000 non-Muslim people from Kashmir. Is this the definition of a struggle? From Afghanistan to Lebanon and Kosovo to Egypt, Islamic religious fundamentalism has surfaced in many manifestations. The major text in Kashmir is the same, and Pakistan is not only the agent provocateur, it is the principal proactive player in the region. Its time, its bluff is called a roadmap to strategic sovereignty drawn up and some sanity restored to the mind, to the mad gridlock in the region. Ladies and gentlemen, I belong to a political party which was founded by hardcore militants who had gone across to Pakistan, got training there, were trained to fight against India. They were the first lot of very, very hardcore militants who had gone to Pakistan and come back after training. Most of them are the people who sustained militancy in the early 90s. The people who kidnapped Durya Swami, the people who kidnapped Mushirul Haq, the people who brought havoc in Kashmir. One of our vice presidents, present vice presidents, is a gentleman who was vice chairman of United Jihad Council, the like you have today, Salahuddin in Pakistan. He was there for 3 long years. One of them, our president, Liaquat Ali, was fighting against Soviet Union in Khost, Afghanistan in 1990 as a second in command to Gulbuddin Hikmatyar. These are the people who had taken gun against India, and it's a treat to talk to them. What forced them to train the same gun against their erstwhile masters, to train the same gun against those Pakistanis, when they saw to the game plan of what Pakistan wants? They have no law laws for Kashmiris. They wanted the real estate. They even told them that we are waiting the day Kashmir becomes a part of Pakistan. We'll get good books and good rights. This is what they talked about, at least knowing that we are talking to the people who are having the gun, Pakistani gun in their hand. These people then, in 1994, 95, trained their guns against those who still believe in that Pakistani theory. And what we saw in 95, 96 is restoration of peace, normalcy, full revival of democracy. We had elections, we had parliamentary elections, which was not fought by Dr. Farooq Abdullah. He had still hesitated. He was shying away from these elections. He had gone out, but after having seen the successful culmination of the parliamentary elections, he came back and fought the assembly elections. And gentlemen and ladies, you must know that it's all untrue that all-party Hurriyat Conference did not participate in the elections. While we were going to the people in the entire rally asking them to come out and vote, to participate in the assembly elections, Hurriyat Conference was going from door to door asking people to boycott the elections. Yet the boycott did not work. International press was there. International media was there. They saw to themselves that except in few constituencies of Srinagar, where the voting was less than 10%, the voting elsewhere in the valley was far more than it has ever been in Pakistan. It was sometimes 30%, sometimes 40%. A government was formed. Things were there. The tragedy is that our people in Kashmir do not understand what insurgency has done to this society of ours. The social structure built over hundreds of years stands totally devastated. The metaphor in Kashmir has changed. People are being killed and no tears are being shed. I have some paper cuttings, some Urdu paper cuttings, in which a policeman comes, salutes his officer, who is having a cup of tea, and tells him, sir, outside State Bank of India, a policeman has been shot, a Kashmiri policeman has been shot. He says, diary mein naam likho. Write down the name in the diary, that's about all. What have these people done? Where is their representative character? Don't they know what's happening? I'll give you an example. A couple of days back, it has appeared in the paper. There was one, Maulvi Muhammad Siddiq Pare, in an Anantnag mosque. You might have heard lots and lots of stories that when Muslims were offering prayers in Kashmiri mosques, it started from Mysuma 1990 when the SHO was offering prayers. When he came out of the mosque, he was shot dead. This continued for long. Yattu, our ex-speaker of the assembly, he was shot dead while he was coming out of the mosque. There were Muslims killed when they were entering the mosque or coming out of the mosque. But this Maulvi Muhammad Siddiq Pare, only 15 days back in Anantnag mosque, he was a muezzin. He was asking people, calling them to come to prayers. He just raised his hands to say Allah, and a bullet went through this temple, exited from here. He could not complete Akbar. This is what is happening in Kashmir. This is what these people who want freedom, this is what they are doing. Only 2 days back, I was here, I read in the internet, Umar here is a place near Srinagar. A gentleman who was taking classes of youngsters, teaching them Quran. A man came and killed him. He just killed him. What did these people want? Somebody here, some panelist here earlier said that in 1990, it was indigenous and secular. I disagree. It was not. It was never secular. JKLF, which spearheaded this movement initially, there were so many people I can see in front of me, they were there those days. They will agree with me that their slogans were pure fundamentalist Islamic slogans. They were saying, Azadi ka matlab kya, la ilaha illallah. Where do I figure it? Do I figure it? Pakistan se rishta kya, la ilaha illallah. Where do I figure it? How is it secular? Every piece of properties, government hospitals, schools, colleges, dispensaries were painted Islamic Republic of Kashmir. Islamic Republic of Kashmir. And where was it secular? Now, yeah, I can agree that it was to some extent indigenous. What happened? Why did a Kashmiri pick up the gun? Was it the rigged elections? No, not at all. We have a habit in Kashmir. When we win or when we want, we accept the election commission. When we lose, we say they're rigged. Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani fought elections, I think, 5-6 times, and he always won. Sometimes he came with 7 people in the assembly, all Jamaat Islami people. He never said that elections were rigged. Never. Then it was okay. He was a member of the assembly. Ghani Lone, he was a minister. I can name so many of them. And then in 1987, again a mistake was made. I think somebody said it here. It was Indira Gandhi was dead in 1984. the elections in 87, she was not involved in these elections of 87, which were supposed to be rigged elections. 87 elections were fought by Congress and National Conference as a coalition, as partners, and the main opponent was MUF. Agreed. Even in the wildest of their dreams, MUF thought, and they said that we have lost some 4 or 5 seats we would have won, but they were rigged. But there are always, you have got remedies. Elections are rigged everywhere. We had a spectacle of seeing alleged rigging of US elections. We saw it everywhere throughout the world. But that doesn't mean the Democrats pick up the guns. Elections are rigged in West Bengal. Elections are rigged everywhere. Wherever the election is there in the third world countries, you have the remedies. You go to the court. You go to the election commission. Now ask them, why did you go to the court? They say, we have no faith in the court. You have no faith in the court. You have selective faith in the Indian jurisprudence. When I'll remind you of what happened in Hazardbal, when these militants had taken over Hazardbal Shrine, all of you must be remembering. The court, they accepted the court verdict. What was the court verdict? That they should be served wazwan, they should be served goshtaba, kebab. You must have all read it in the papers. That time the court was okay. We like the court decision. But this time we can't go to the court because we don't like it. Yasin Malik is charged with 302 of Indian Penal Code, murder, which is to be the sentence, he can be hanged to death anywhere. It's a non-bailable offense, but the court is okay because the court bails him out. And he can move around, he can come here, he can talk to you, then the Indian courts are wonderful. But when it comes to, we tell them, come on, you have lost elections at the legacy, you please go and go to the court. No, we don't believe in the court. What kind of, I don't understand. What do they want? Now, why did he pick up the gun and then what happened? Why did he pick up the gun in 1989, 90? The problem is, way back in 1947, we have been telling the Kashmiri, Muslim, Kashmiri Hindu, he was brought up on the slogan of plebiscite, Rai Shumari. Rai Shumari, Rai Shumari, Rai Shumari. He has been listening to this throughout the generations. For 50 long years, he has heard this one slogan, Rai Shumari, plebiscite. What did plebiscite mean? Plebiscite meant anything but accession with India. So he was brought up on an anti-Indian notion. He was almost brought. Pakistan was trying to take advantage of this. Pakistan made 1,000 attempts before 1989 through plebiscite front, through political conference, through everything else except he did not send in the gun. Then he last time thought that gun should be introduced. If Kashmiri Muslim was really interested in independence, it was my ancestor, your ancestor, Ramchand Khan, who in 1947 offered independence. He persuaded Maharaja Hari Singh, the ruler of Jammu and Kashmir, not to accede to India, not to accede to Pakistan, with the sole hope and aim of creating a democratic, sovereign state of Jammu and Kashmir. And you know what happened? The tallest of tall leaders, the most popular leader, Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah, he handcuffed him. He made him parade. He paraded him through the streets of Kashmir. And they didn't want, definitely not independence. If they wanted independence, they would have involved me. Every movement of Kashmir, a Kashmiri Muslim, every movement of Kashmir has always had a Kashmiri Pandit. Whether it was Rai Shumari Mahal, whether it was political conference, any number of names I can give. Kashmiri Pandits were external because they had cited Sheikh Abdullah. How many names I should give? Premnath Bazar, Jagannath Sattu, Dr. Kashinath Tikku, any number of names. But what happened? What happened? Pakistan sorted. As long as the Kashmiri Pandit is part of any movement, it can never be a Pakistani. It can never be a fundamentalist movement. And if it cannot be a fundamentalist movement, it cannot have the total participation of Kashmiri Muslims. How then to exclude Kashmiri Pandit? Exclude Kashmiri Pandit. Kill one scared thousand. They did it. They killed one scared thousand. Then what happened? They came. They said that it is jihad. Every Muslim, anywhere in any part of the world, it's his bounden duty to be a part of jihad. He understands it later, like the boys who have made this political party, Jammu Kashmir Awami Conference. they understood. It took them some time. Oh, it's no jihad. We are being misled into something which we should not do. And that is what is happening in Kashmir today. Let me assure you, my friends, that Kashmiri Muslims, majority of them are not for Pakistan. They are not anti-Indians. Given a chance, it's a tragedy that we portray APHC more than lifestyle. My friend said just now that Gilani talked that it is an Islamic jihad, while Ghani Lone said that it is a political struggle. Let me assure you, Ghani Lone never said it in Srinagar. And both of them are in APHC. Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani has not been removed. They made a request to Jamaat Islami that you have another president, Muhammad Bhat. You send him as your representative. Jamaat Islami said, go to hell. Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani will remain there, whose agenda is, even today APHC agenda is, that Kashmir should become a part of Pakistan just because it's an Islamic war, it's a jihad. But that is the ground reality. The ground reality is also this, that more and more Kashmiri Muslims have seen through the game. And they are there to see that any move to take away Kashmir from India is not successful. They will see to it that it's not successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Sikhu, for yet another fascinating aspect on the impact of insurgency in Kashmir. We have exactly 11 minutes left for questions. If there are any questions for Captain Sikhu that you've thought of, please bring those up. Yes, if there's any additional for Captain Sikhu. I will begin with the first question for Mr. Wani. Could you say for me, a Kashmiri pundit, the following quote: "I renounce a faith that believes in killing a Hindu for being a Hindu," unquote.
First of all, let me explain to you. The Islam believes in peace. It doesn't teach violence. Any religion that teaches violence, that teaches killing of another human being, cannot be justified on any grounds. I will not accept that religion that will simply say, kill this person because he's a Hindu. Innocent killing is an inhuman act, wherever it is done.
Thank you. For the Deputy Consul, Kashmiris in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir are severely oppressed. This land was grabbed illegally by Pakistan in 1948. Why does it seem that India is willing to abandon these people by trading land and people for peace, if agreeing to the line of patrol as the official border between India and Pakistan?
Well, I think it's an interesting question, but we have to be very practical in looking into these issues. We're talking about the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. We are having problems in resolving the Kashmir issue in the part of Kashmir which is with us. And as some of the speakers said, that we don't know where we stand and how far would we go in resolving this problem. So I think under these circumstances, to take on the subject of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir is something which doesn't really fit into the game plan at this moment. And I think that would be like adding additional burden to the process which we are already undertaking at the moment.
Next question is for Mr. Wani. Your passionate presentation was, by definition, espousing a secular ideology. Why then are you stopping short of boldly saying that you are for India? Your ideology has no place in Pakistan.
I am for Kashmir.
Next question is for the Deputy Consul. What is the government of India's strategy for espousing the safe, secure, and prosperous return of Kashmiri pundits and secular-minded Muslim Sikhs to their homeland homes and jobs in Kashmir?
Well, this is a question which remains unanswered for quite some time. I mean, even now at this stage, while negotiations are going to take place with Pakistan, and as I said, with various Kashmiri groups, I think if all goes well and the way things have been planned, possibly there are going to be various stages through which discussions are going to take place. And initial few stages are going to be basically focusing on opening channels of communication. And once that is achieved, then the various groups like the Kashmiri Pandits, the Sikhs, the Dogras, etc. will be brought in. And as I said, that there's not going to be any negotiation, any agreement or any understanding on Kashmir without the participation and role of all the elements who form part of Kashmir.
Any questions again for Captain Tikku? If you have any, please bring them up. This one is for Mr. Wani. What does the Arabic names of all parties, including the Huria, imply about their movement in Kashmir? Is there no Kashmiri word for these so-called freedom movements?
I really don't know what it is. All parties, Hurriyat means freedom, freedom conference. And when I see the composition of it, our bar association, to which I belonged, I was the general secretary of that, was also a component of it. 34 parties on that. And bar association didn't want Pakistan, they didn't want something. But the literary meaning is, Hurriyat means freedom.
Two more questions. Mr. Halder, why doesn't India destroy the terrorist camps like Israel does?
That's a great question. I wish India could do that. Well, I'm not saying as an official of the government of India, but on my personal basis, sitting back at home when I hear of the incidents taking place there, and I always have these thoughts of why not go ahead and sort of bombard the places. But I think as a democracy, as a country which in that region in South Asia has taken on a tremendous task and responsibility in terms of security and perception and strategy, I think it would be very immature-ish on the part of India to take on such an action. As you would see in Israel also, in Palestine, in that part of the world, there's no end to any violence. I mean, the fact that Israel is taking on a very aggressive approach is not really solving the problem. I mean, it eventually came down to President Clinton having both the sides over at White House for discussions. So, and then now they're fighting again. So you may again see a second phase where President Bush may have both the sides again for discussion at the White House. And again they go back to war. So I don't think so that's a solution really. I guess that's probably the last resort which one has. But frankly, as a democracy, as an emerging democracy, as the largest democracy, I don't think so we should go in for that.
One final question to Mr. Wani. You said in your speech that it is a Kashmiri problem, and to the Kashmiris, and that the Kashmiris have to resolve it. Well, we would like to have your brief overview of your thought process in that direction as to how it can be started. Please keep it brief.
Wow, you are making me a politician. So it has come down for me to decide Kashmir issue. See, it's a very complex problem. It's not that easy. When we talk that Pakistan should leave that occupied part, it's not practical for Pakistan to leave that when we talk of the realities. They have a huge investment in Kashmir. Their capital is only 15 miles away from Kashmir. Their big dam that gives power, energy to Pakistan is in Kashmir. And their strategic location, their routes, trade routes with China go through Kashmir. It's a very complex problem, but I have seen many reports on that. Kashmir Study Group has come up with many ideas on that. There are some ideas from our various different organizations. And my view is, do whatever you want to do. Give it to India. Give it one time. Give it freedom. Give it one time. Don't keep it alive. If you had decided in 1947, we would have not been suffering now. You kept it alive. You didn't make it a complete part of India. You politicians are responsible for that. You made us suffer. Whatever you are going to do, do it once for all. We should not have another exodus after 50 years. We should not have another bloodshed in Kashmir after 50 years. We have to resolve it. There may be, I am for peaceful Kashmir.
We have 3 more minutes. We have a question for Captain Tikku, and we'll end with this, I promise. I have heard that there are Kashmiri Muslims interested in the abrogation of Article 370. Can you comment on this? And the second part, what is your opinion to the solution, given the ground reality that you know?
To this question, I must tell you a recent anecdote. When this trifurcation resolution was passed by Prathinidhi Sabha of Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh in Nagpur some 6 months back, that it sent a message that Kashmiris are politically very, very conscious people. The undercurrent was there that, Kashmir is being trifurcated, Jammu and Ladakh and Kashmir, 3 different regions. And then again they would talk. It means that Panu Kashmir is also on its way. After all, Kashmiri funds cannot be left out. So Panu Kashmir is also carved out. And then, huddled in their own rooms with Kangri there, oh God, when will it happen? We'll be so happy to live in this Panu Kashmir. We'll get rid of the Mujahids, we'll get rid of the militants, and we'll get rid of the Farooq family. We'll be very happy. No 370, no autonomy, no pre-53. That was the reaction of General Kashmiri. He was waiting that whenever this Panu Kashmir is carved, he will be the happiest person with the Union Territory status. That is his reaction. That is what he thinks these days. What's the second? Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. He is not interested in Article 370 at all. He wants to live in Panu Kashmir. You have to see that the gun is silenced. The day the militant's gun is silenced, you will see who the real representative of the people of Kashmir is. And gun is to be silenced. I don't believe in these half-hearted efforts. It has to be silenced. Government of India has to see that the militant's gun is silenced. He will immediately come to know who the representatives of Kashmiris are and what they really do. Let the elections be held, they will participate, and that is the end of it.
I want to thank all the panelists for sticking exactly to our time of 60 minutes. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Another informative and inspiring session. Let's give them a big hand, ladies and gentlemen. I also want to say I think it was very heartening to see such diversity on the panel. Because, when we have discussions of this kind, it really is imperative to bring different viewpoints and different backgrounds. And I think the challenge for us is that as civilized human beings in the 21st century, we have to agree to disagree on certain subjects, but the challenge is how we handle those disagreements. And I fully endorse the viewpoint that we have to, as Indo-Americans, as Americans, as a world community, we have to say no to violence. It has to stop. We have to find a better way to come to the table, discuss our differences, and then come up with an amicable resolution. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, we are ready for lunch. I believe they've set the lunch outside, and it's divided into vegetarian and non-vegetarian. So grab your plates and socialize, stretch your legs, and then get back for another session in the afternoon. So we want musicians of Indian origin. He has an incredible level of energy that he divides between his practice, his family, and his community. And those of you who have had the opportunity probably know that it is futile to get into a discussion with Dr. Kundu, since he can debate you on almost any issue under the sun. So please welcome our friend Dr. Kundu. I just also want to say Dr. Kundu will be introducing our keynote speaker for the day, Congressman Jim McDermott. And I just found out something that I wanted to share with you because I think it's significant. We have a lot of elected officials who work closely with our community, and some are so sincere in their motivation that when I see something like that, I really like to kind of bring it out. Congressman McDermott, it happens to be his wife's birthday today. And at great risk to domestic bliss, he came here to be with us during this morning, and then he'll be flying back to Seattle, I believe, to join her for the evening. So please wish her on behalf of our community. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the dynamic Dr. Kundu.
Thank you. I'm not sure that was a very generous introduction, but I'll take it nevertheless. Can I have the lights off, please? It is indeed a great pleasure on my part to introduce to you somebody that really doesn't need an introduction, that is Congressman McDermott. As you know, he is the Democratic co-chair of the India Caucus. Please, could you just turn the lights off, please? It's probably better that way. Could you please leave the lights off? Could you please leave the lights off, please? That's it, thank you. And to make a few words of introduction, he is a Democrat for the 43rd Legislative District of Seattle, Washington, and he is a physician by training. And he was not only re-elected to the state Senate 3 times, but he is now in his 7th term in Congress. In between, he served as a physician in Zaire when he quit from his legislative position. But he went on to do some remarkable things, and I think these actions are important. I think a review of the analysis of his voting is important to know what the man is. He's also the co-author of the single-payer system, which really very few people understand, but a physician will tell you that if you take the vested interest out of medicine, that's how you cure the ills of medicine. There aren't many people that understand that, but that is Congressman McDermott. And he was chairman of the Senate Ways and Means, chairman of the Legislative Budget Committee. For those of you who know these terms, these are extremely powerful positions in the United States. And why am I saying this? Because I think today it's kind of my job, at least I take it as my job, to present to him some aspects of the leadership of this country. This country, I think, is based on strength, and the only strength at this point in time. And these are the actions that he has done in basic education, nursing home reform, public works, comparable worth funding, the Clean Water Act, the Basic Health Care Act, and he was the first in-nation plan of providing affordable managed care to unemployed and uninsured. I have to say that these talk about his caring for the common man. Which brings me to the question of power. And Congressman McDermott is in a position to influence that power. And I think that is why he's with us today, and that is why we need to present to him some points of view which may not have been presented. As a matter of fact, I personally think that in the wonderful panel discussions we've had earlier today, we may have either pussyfooted or not really spelled out how important the role of the United States is in the geopolitical stability of not only India, but any country in the world right now. The United States is the only remaining superpower. Nothing happens unless the United States wants it. So whoever else there may be, it is going to be people like Congressman McDermott who is going to change the way they happen. And when I go back to one of the questions that I think one of the speakers brought up, is that why is the international pressure not being brought upon Pakistan? The answer is because it's the United States who will decide where the international pressure comes in. And I think that is where we are here today, to bring to the Congressman a point of view, a perspective, which he already knows and shares. So, I have to ask a question, which is probably embarrassing. I'm an American, and I think by far the majority of the audience is. But you're going to ask the question, are you proud to be an American? My answer is an unequivocal yes. But what does that mean? Look at all the interventions that the United States has had in international affairs, in the politics of individual countries, And I think I have to share with you some. That there are in fact in Americas groups of people in power in the United States don't often think homogeneously. There are actions taken against individual countries which are so punitive and so arbitrary. And we as Americans share in that. We have to. Would those actions make us proud? No. If you look at South Africa, the regime in South Africa was in fact supported, abetted, financed, armed by the United States in all its reign of glory. On the other hand, it was again the people of the United States who gathered at one time, influenced the industry, influenced the interests, and lo and behold, apartheid is no longer in South Africa. So which one am I going to be proud of and which one am I going to be ashamed of? But I have to say that the role that that has been played by the United States is pivotal. And having said that, one has to recognize that what may happen in Kashmir, what may happen in the Indian subcontinent, unfortunately, is what is going to be the viewpoint of America. So, what is the role of America in various other parts where American influence has come about? I couldn't help but bring about this issue of the School of the Americas. For those of you who do not know, this is a U.S. Army school which is based in Fort Benning in Georgia, and it trains Latin American soldiers in combat, counter-insurgency, counter-narcotics. Graduates of the School of the Americas have been responsible for some of the worst human rights abuses in Latin America. Among the School of the Americas, nearly 60,000 graduates are notorious dictators: Manuel Noriega, Omar Torrijos of Panama, Leopoldo Galtieri, Roberto Villa of Argentina, Juan Velasco Alvarado of Peru, Guillermo Rodriguez of Ecuador, Hugo Panzas Suarez of Bolivia. Lower-level SOA graduates have participated in human rights abuses that include assassination of Archbishop Oscar Romero, El Mozote massacre of 900 civilians. This, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, is the action that you and I are also responsible for as Americans. So where does Congressman McDermott come in? He tried to stop this. That is what gives me hope, that when we have a similar situation where there may be vested interests in the United States who may wish to foment war in some parts of the world, let's agree that it happens. The biggest mover over there is the weapons industry. They sell weapons to both sides. Who is it who will stop them? People like Congressman McDermott. An example of leadership in the United States. This is a statement by a former president. Some of you may recognize his name. We bought Panama, we paid for it, we built it, and we intend to keep it. If that be the attitude towards a portion of this continent, what is the hope for the people over there? So, and there was Vietnam. Do we take responsibility for Vietnam? We do. You can't avoid it. If you're an American today and you walk the streets of Vietnam, somebody could have the right to turn around and tell you that you're the guys that did it. So if you recall, about 30 years ago, there was a 28-year-old, very bright graduate in Oxford who was drafted into this war. And he didn't feel like this was the moral things to do. Guess what? He did not go to that war. And at age 28, he made a remarkable statement. This action of mine is going to hurt my run for presidency. That man was Bill Clinton. Now, the war industry labeled him as a draft dodger. Nobody recognized the fact that he was the original conscientious objector when that word was out of style. So I have to say that he did not take responsibility for this war. And I don't think that anybody is less of an American than Bill Clinton. And I think in his time he tried to make amends, as he has tried to make amends in India. I just read in the newspaper yesterday that he was instrumental in stopping the battle in Kargil. So therefore, the lessons of these parts of the world that we have, and we bring it to situations where we have people who are activists in stopping these agencies which are funded by very powerful people in this country. And these people went ahead and put a bill, HR 4205, for those of you who, well, the number is not important, but what it was, it proposed that the School of the Americas be closed. And very rightly so. Guess what? The voting went 214 against 204. Among that 204 is Congressman McDermott. And you know what? I look forward to that time when that ratio will be reversed. And I think one at a time, when we recognize these things and we as Americans tell our elected officials, you cannot go and kill in another country and don't expect that battle to come into your doorstep, into your ghettos, into your barrios, in drugs and weapons that will kill our own children. It will, believe me, it will, and it has. So this is where we come and we draw attention of Congressman McDermott. He already has his attention there. He is the co-chair of the India Caucus. The India Caucus, as you know, is the largest caucus in the House and Senate today. I think the current number is about 126, if you will. Am I correct? Thank you. 126 bipartisan group of senators and congressmen who get together and think about this part of the world. And I would like, under the leadership of Congressman McDermott, that we have decisions where we take on those questions that have been pushed to our panelists and they can only answer them with their skills. Congressman McDermott, hopefully in time, will be able to hold the reins of the dogs of war, pull back the weapons supplier, pull back the drug supplier, pull back the liaisons that have been formed over there, and recognize the fact we need Taliban. Taliban did not happen in Afghanistan. It was created. It was created by the CIA, ostensibly to fight the Russians. But every weapon that the Taliban carries has a little mark at the bottom that says made in USA. The spent cartridge shell that will be shot into Kashmir, go look, it has a made in USA sign. On the disgusting underbelly of the Taliban, I would be surprised if there isn't a sign that says made in USA. And therefore, if we recognize this fact, and we rein in the powers, forget the Cold War, it's over. There's only one power now. If there is two, then it is again created. I think China is another power, well, fine, but they are trying to make a living just as everybody else. But the United States has to show the way, and it cannot show the way by having terrorists armed with US weapons supplied by US intelligence, either in Latin America or in the Indian subcontinent or in Asia. So this is where we are, and I draw the attraction of Congressman McDermott. And next please. I have to pause here. I couldn't but share this little thing on the website. This is the CPS News poll on May 19th to 21st in 1998, which sampled 10800 adults nationwide. And they were asked the question, are your feelings towards India? We are asking American citizens, by the way. Are your feelings towards India generally favorable, generally unfavorable, or neutral? And look at these numbers. 14% were favorable, 31% unfavorable, 51% didn't know. Now 4% of that were kind enough to say that they didn't know. So the fact is, if you look at the 41 and 31, and don't be misled, Majority of Americans don't know. If you take the don't knows and you take the favorables, you're way ahead. Yet the way this poll could be interpreted is the Americans think poorly of India. I don't think the answer is that. So therefore, 204 versus 214, this is the ratio we will change, that the majority of Americans, the majority of US congressmen and senators who are in the position of power, who are in the position to take appropriate decisions in war and in peace, will rule favorably, and that is when we will have peace in Kashmir. There is no way you can have peace in Kashmir without an official international voice. And ladies and gentlemen, let's not kid ourselves. International voice is the US voice. So, this is Congressman McDermott. As you know, he has a great interest in Africa. And he has spent time there. And I love this picture where he was showing kids the details of Zaire where he has left. And I look forward to the time when that map will be a map of India and Kashmir. And hopefully, we will have occasions to celebrate. Congressman McDermott.
There are times when you probably would be better off not to speak. After that introduction, I sound like somebody I didn't really know, and I'm very honored by that kind of generous introduction. In thinking about coming here and talking today, I said to my staff, why should I take this speaking engagement? I don't know what to say. Then I thought about it a while, and I thought, well, I think I'll come because I want to have an opportunity to listen to as many different points of view about this issue as I can, so that I can be as knowledgeable in making decisions as possible. Earlier this year, David Bonnier, the minority leader of the House, and I went to India and Pakistan. One day David said to me, you know something, Kashmir is such a mess. Isn't there some way we can work on it? And he said, why don't you take me to India since you know about India and I know about Pakistan, I'll take you to Pakistan. So the two of us went on this trip. We happened to choose the period of time just shortly after the Gujarat earthquake had occurred, so we spent some time in Bhuj and the Kutch, and we saw that aspect of it. And one of the things that was fascinating about it and made me hopeful, because I listened to some of the panelists today, and you could be without any hope. But when there was an earthquake in India, the Pakistani sent some help. And it surprised me. I didn't think that that would happen, but there it was. And I think that the impulse for peace is very strong among most of the people. I've been to Amritsar several times at the closing of the day when they close the gates and take down the flags and so forth and have this ceremony. And you look at the fence, and here's these kids standing on one side, Indian kids, and on the other side, Pakistani kids, and they're talking about movies and about music and about clothes. And you ask yourself, what is it that we're dealing with here that we as adults can't resolve? And I think that's really why I came down here, was to listen to what people say and how we in the Congress perhaps can be helpful in this whole process. I think it's really kind of a stroke that you would pick this time to have this meeting because of the developments that have happened in the last several weeks. It's always hard to predict when you set up a conference what's going to be going on at the time you do it. But certainly somebody's stars or their astrologer told them the right day to have this meeting. I was in New Delhi when Prime Minister Vajpayee met Prime Minister Sharif in Lahore. And I remember with all the optimism, I watched, sitting in my hotel room, watched this famous cricket player from India, whose name I had forgotten, but who was going back to Pakistan for the first time in many, many, many years, and how emotionally excited he was by this opportunity. And I think that kind of optimism was very strong. I was also in New Delhi earlier this year when Prime Minister Vajpayee extended the unilateral ceasefire. In fact, the meeting that we were having with him was cut short. He said, I have to go and do something. What he had to go and do was tell the parliament that he was going to extend the ceasefire. And there was, again, this feeling of optimism that was moving through the country. You could feel some of it. Everywhere I've gone, I've found people who want to bring an end to 53 years of this kind of problem. And I've been one of those who always believed that there was promise and enormous possibilities in India. From the first time I went in 1990, I went there looking at the AIDS epidemic and then got into a whole lot of other things. But from the very beginning, it was clear that there was enormous possibility. And my colleagues in Washington and I think more and more people are coming to the realization of the possibility. It took us the better part of 6 years to get Mr. Clinton to finally go to India. And culminated last year in the kind of home-and-home visit between Vajpayee and Clinton. And I think that the day has come when we are on a solid footing, and it will continue. As you saw earlier this year, see, I got to be careful here not to be too political, but Mr. Bush also saw the possibilities when Jaswant Singh was in town and greeted him with open arms. I believe that the Indian-American relationship will continue. Now, I think that, as was been mentioned, I've been to India 16 times, and I've been over most of the country. Not all of it. The Northeast is still a little bit unsettling, and I haven't been up there. But I've been almost everywhere else. And until this question of Kashmir is resolved, I don't think it's going to reach its full potential and take its place as a world leader. I think that has to be resolved some way. And I'm one of those who believes that India is living in the most dangerous neighborhood in the world, and really that Kashmir is the linchpin to solving and stabilizing that part of the world. And India has a potentially great role to play in the geopolitical solution to the instability of Pakistan and Iran and Afghanistan and all the Soviet stands, and then you get over into China. When you look at that area on the map, you realize, I guess it's gone, how central India really is. And if India isn't able to resolve this, they're not going to be able to grow into the country that they potentially can be. Now you have 350,000 Kashmir Hindus, the Pandits, who have been forced to abandon their home and live in exile all over the place, including in Seattle's Southern Brothers. The diaspora of the Kashmiris is one of the tragedies of the independence of India, in my view. The Kashmir Valley was a jewel. It still is physically a jewel, but it was also the home of a harmonious living arrangement between Hindus and Muslims and Christians. I went to Kashmir, to Srinagar in December of '94, I think. And to go into this place, this beautiful country, and go stand by the edge of that lake and look at those mountains over there, and look behind you at hotels that are empty, and walk through these abandoned hotels and say to yourself, what in the world is going on here? Because it's clear that it was a wonderful spot and has still that potential. Now, the terror tactics that have been employed by the alien insurgents have brought us to the situation where we are today. I mentioned that I was in New Delhi when Prime Minister Vajpayee went to Lahore, and I told him later how much I admired you for having done that. The strong always have the responsibility to reach out to the weaker. But it's never easy, because there are always some people who think, well, you shouldn't do that. And it was a good step. It was troublesome to me that it was immediately derailed by the Pakistani misadventures in Kargil. And last February, a few months